Dear Governor Lamont, it is one thing to have great schools, comparatively. Every American school in many ways failed to understand why and how George Washington had to leave slavery entrenched in Wethersfield, Connecticut, and in the North, right before the last battle of the Revolutionary War, having to meet here with the French general to secure that means to fight a revolution where they didn't have the power or the might to admit their complete and true roles with the preservation of potential for someday. The republic for which we stand, that was revealed by ancients, more practically too, since before sciences and identities of countries became tactically, criminally foreign influenced victims, not fathoming how that would be exploited. In other words, where people make convictions about the past, for example, when they're speaking about the integrity of people now, because there are roles with a wire crime method /S, with the kids, with the phones, and with the Facebook pages of the campuses and intercampuses. Now there are judges and our prosecutors. Former Governor Malloy. And they get people, then they have them and their family members pretend passions and emotions. I don't know him. They do sneaky things from background. I asked 50,000 times for a response. My town's police chief, prosecutors, judges, their kids are involved with sequencing and shifting, forging names, switching names, fabricating police reports, and then making it look like it means something. If people got arrested before or not, for example, leaving out such exception nature. They're not allowed to have the benefit of the doubt when they're doing such and they're involved with such like predicate acts outside of courts. When they're making allegations outside of courts, they can't speak about allegations in courts. These are people involved with remote uses of those courts, of themselves, of their neighbors. This is a method that was entrenched here since before America was even founded. As clear as day, since before cars. There are the pathology of homes. Now the streets just fit in front of them. And this was designed to cause negative value nature progressions, acts and natures, in the suburbs, let alone. So they made Hartford a suburban /urban. As all victim reactions, then what they do? Then they sell a 3-family home now. Would they call guns crimes, or would they call guns a problem, or slavery, rather than the identity ground locations themselves, rather than calling it, active, inherent active and progressive, rather than discerning it, inherent active and progressive, a breaching method applied to every single location, let alone those more forsaken. So it's all right per laws to have theater politics narratives about schools and communities, but it is not all right to hide that which was exploiting that sickly distinctly, specifically to maintain sides that are all tactically ulterior from how we are supposed to be individually grouped in together. This science of the invisible but still discernible, with two identities of sequence / simultaneous nature further. Time is 3 bodies bound. I'll gather round. We'll see. There is the past, there is the active, and there is that which is to come. The cell body, cell nucleus, cell wall. One trinity is making more and more of itself. But it's that trinity which cannot mix, two natures of it will not mix with the other 3. we're individually grouped in together. It is a perfect value transfer that is a simultaneous value increase system wherein how it's complete identity over an extent of space of the extent of space / existence already completely positive, also positive unto itself. It is making more completely positive, also positive unto itself as the rest of space nature with no criminal foreign influences. And our systems are the cause of lethal IDs for space nature transfer. See, if there wasn't a little dog upstairs, a 16-year-old Yorkie, I would give a impassioned religious speech. Interreligions too, differentially, especially. Semi-ancient trap is clear as day. Amen and pray. Thank God the ancient gaming system, it only feels like games. But it's evolution science, which works with ground. I'll gather round. So the temporary locations of a computer allow what would be too expensive if it would be only the CPU. If it would be type of memory that also stays when the computer turns off. So but now the quality becomes better. So it's cheaper, but in other words, so if I use a word like cheap, because that is a cheap allotment. Worse than cheap is a torture allotment. It was a breaching method allotment. That set up people to try not even to fathom revolution, let alone, break those laws individually, grouping at all. Which is all about how people sustained increasingly were human relations tactically propagated as two uses of criminal and seditious natures of positive treatments, in collusion with criminal seditious natures of negative treatments, of identity treatments, sequence treatments, finite, active, progressive, and identity where and how this science is about how we are individual grouped, those 3 volumes, species, identity, volume. It's a semi-nature relationship to that which has this, making more and more forever nature. Only the extent of it is debatable. And those who debate that are recorded having to self-value, tactically, criminally, foreign influence, precedent, statutes, premises treatments, sequence treatment, etc. And this is observable. But we have names forging and switching. We have a method that has people lock themselves into roles, pretending in passions, emotions in front of strangers. Also as roles with fake sides of correlation, because then people go back and talk about what happened or other people's names in sequence relationships. In other words, the courts, even though they're not doing this alone, their motivations for it, they're doing it with other countries with the same people that are involved with it. Overt criminal enterprises, private ones, other countries' police forms, private industry, killers, people associated with the identity ground locations where all that is kept needing to hide the same sequence shifts, finite, active, and progressive lies. To hide their uses of the archetypal criminal enterprise that enables that, and which keeps everything else disabled, and which keeps that self-valued. Only capable of discerning it through an as logic that the extension of it will show them why to shut up first, not by accident. There is complete possession over the sophistication of human fact-sheet nature. Nature being its simultaneous relationship to positive and negative, while being as this semi-nature relationship to that value progression perfect. So Governor Lamont, please get on paper the people regarding the confessions, regarding the principal child offenders campus, and how they used the foreign and domestic associated with the corners of that street, Highcrest Street. These are people involved with other schools, intercities, on and off religious locations. These are doctors. There's a Leahy family. At least two of them with the name Brendan Leahy. They have women in their family associated with medicines racketeering, worse than war crimes. They attached me to fake conversations with them. They have people when I was a kid recorded, confessed, demonstrated, seek me out to trick me to persuasions, to locations they can make confessions to me, then pretend to know me. When I was in high school, a year longer too, because of this. But so other people had graduated. Rick C.M. Faglione, I never saw him on my campus in high school the whole time he was in my grade. I had one class in middle school. That was his also recorded, confessed, demonstrated people on all the state judicial branch offices. People involved with identity theft frauds. You sit next to people, you sit near them. Everyone was speaking through other people. These are people involved with former Mayor Gold and other mayors and their family members, neighbors of their parents when they were kids. Involved with people seeding illusions with investigations that are used remotely. And so this keeps them needing to pretend their integrity otherwise, or we get hurt economically at the World Trade Center level, etc. That was his breaching method employed. So rather than get into all that, I need a response for there's a Mike Levine, also recorded, confessed, and demonstrated involved with people further on the child offender registry, involved with predicate acts on and off the child offenders campus, and with a Dillon family that is also recorded, confessed, and demonstrated involved with people like an O'Brien family, and a family that used to live down the street, a D. Simone family. Also confessed and recorded by a guy named Britt, a nurse. So they have impositions on location, sickly distinctly, like Hartford hospitals. They have people that get violent sometimes. So they have to do things about it. And then they have to defend that. But then they have defenses of that. Well, they're pretending people that did, then they use it just to get people that didn't do anything. They start making, they put predicate acts against them and their families. And then they pretend they had conversations with them. They fabricate audio and video into databases. Now, so these are people associated with various natures of courts that are personally criminally involved, with the Leahy family, and with a former director of the FBI and his co-defendants. Also with houses next to Webb School, and with people associated with Webb School in Wethersfield, and all along that route that goes to Central Connecticut State University, involved with people with my name, who are involved with sequence shifts and predicate acts with judges and prosecutors, and various natures of police forms that prevent writing while pretending other, because they've been just stacking fabricated audio and video into databases. They put fake sides of they have bad things happen, they have good things happen. And they have put fake sides of correlation they use. Because of how they're recorded need to hide live progressions. In relationship to correlation nature. In relationship to how they were shock and awe when they're asked about what they think Jim Crow laws were about. Anyone. Because they came through these sick campuses. Our founding parents' identity stolen. Marbury versus Madison. Real justice must satisfy all appearances of real justice. That's what I was taught Marbury versus Madison means by my father. And that makes sense. Real justice must satisfy all appearances of real justice. See, we have courts that have been fabricating audio and video with locations and on their own and with other nations and with our military and with other countries' militaries. A whole bunch of people associated with Eric Burgess, who they affected him, courts and military people affected him and others to record, confess, and demonstrate that courts, judges, and prosecutors, people associated with the military, people that work for those people, are involved with predicate acts on and off campuses with them, child campuses too, and religious locations. And then they bring everyone's family members and their neighbors involved with it, because they have sense and sensibilities. They have worse than that. They have uses of the of the lie progression, of the standing lie progression. They have the uses of the premises treatments of people with a wire crime method, where they pretend they don't understand people. Like, for example, WFSB attached me to fake words, fake sequences, fake locations, fake ties to doctors as a kid. They attached other kids to fake locations. They are recorded, confessed, and demonstrated using the crime method of pretending they're hiding the crimes they did for legal reasons to further the rest of it there. Because they're preventing me from telling on a whole bunch of things I needed to tell on since I was a kid. It's nothing complicated at all either. But they stack all these complicated things with strangers. They have little girls pretending passions, emotions each year tied. Little boys still. They have little boys and girls that were for over the last 5 years involved with a method of abuses of them and uses of that. Self-value, forced. Also, per how they use on and off the parks and on and off the field next to my house. Where and how people don't understand, but to an extent, that has their involvement as victim predators. So rather than call people predators, I need a response on paper to counter the men who were involved with predicate, and women who were involved with predicate acts, fake conversations with me and other kids, attaching people to fake audio and video transcripts like a Dillon family, involved with the parks and with the programs with the kids too, Cub Scouts. He's roles with other natures of sexual abuses of girls and of boys. Also for the identity thefts. They're preventing people from meeting girls by keeping the identity ground locations possessed by people that are being and having been used remotely. They start fights with people. Then you say that they pretend the passions and emotions like you're a bad person. You know, they pretend they mix themselves with the location's crimes. So I ask again nicely, the Fox Connecticut News, fix the fake stories you put on me, get the judges to one name and sequence, and get me a response in paper. They're recorded, confessed, and demonstrated. I have time for their games. And get me out of the fake words they put me and my family to. And we're not going to, they also attach people to fake other than they actually pleaded in cases. There is also, with the depositions, a former director of the FBI and his co-defendants leading up to the 2006 case. There are also confessions regarding their roles with pretending passions and emotions regarding things that have been proven, where and how they are involved with contacts with private job sites, we're involved with, all kinds of drugs crimes and natures of crimes, proven that with families that are also involved with lie progressions from that, since before that are exploited on and off campuses, with the interbranch kids and the private school kids are involved with fabricating audio and video into databases with medical families, foreign and domestic, and uses of that, and overt criminal enterprises, and programs with police forms, and with fire departments, like the fire departments involve locations next to them, especially ones next to schools. next to parks, geographical locations, next to corners. So this keeps the sense and sensibilities of people needing to hide uses of identity ground locations on a mass scale as styles that can't defend their logic and afford anyone to have mandated law followed if they're going to use the short words protracted as truth. That is also its identity as all exceptions in exception nature, therefore not denied. Each one has lied. So, Officer Cintron, respond for him on paper. Have him respond for himself on paper. And for his daughter, because she's recorded, confessed, and demonstrated by a John Maiano and the others involved with the Wethersfield police, recorded, confessed, and demonstrated, threatening to keep fabricating audio and video against me and other kids and adults. And everyone not tied to them since through time, as they did and are doing. Also, so they did this individually as executive police forms. They also do it in methods by that. Then they also do this as judicial identities of the ground locations and police forms. And political families individually grouped and together, criminally foreign influence. Not complicated. It's not complicated. I need a response for the confessions. And there are names with the name KNERR with New Britain Superior Court. Their Facebook page is also one of the Facebook pages involved with investigators' investigations and clicks with fake Facebook pages pretending to be me and people tied to me and my family. And with the rape threats. And with the principal child defender's school. They had further roles then and further. And with people on and off Trinity College when I was a kid. Also involved with Mike Kerr, Ray Cololo, and Joe DeMoro. The Cololo family is one of the names that are brought up. Also, a Kerr family was recorded, confessed, demonstrated on by Officer Jerry Miller online. Involved with them. With the campuses further, with the principal child of the campus further then and now, with Facebook involved with sexually oriented, medical oriented, identity theft, fraud, sequence shift oriented, falsified police reports oriented, military families oriented, punk trick games with a time, sequence shift roles, fake sides of correlation nature oriented. And how that all has connections to all along Route 3. Which goes right by the state judicial branch offices, no. And so there are houses next to the state judicial branch offices that are Fianza family and others are also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, having been involved with criminally. With the judges and prosecutors, these are people planting people to act with locations. To make allegations against people because these are evidence racketeering way worse than that. War crimes roles. Leading up to the World Trade Center attack. And since it, with the investigations. Now we have this, Hartford Hospital has military families. Also intercities through time involved with the predicate acts on illusions, no. On and off Hartford Hospital relevant. They have other medical hospitals and nurses and doctors, foreign and domestic, involved with this, tied to the syntax racketeering, where we have identities of experts, of doctors, intersciences, individually grouped and together, criminally foreign influence. So they have you offensively pretending dishonestly, we're legitimately, even to yourselves, that you don't want people not to seek medical treatment. Meanwhile, outside of courts, people need to be able to report where courts and police forms are recorded involved with the ground locations used criminally. When I was a kid in grammar school in Wethersfield, the one with the one involved now with the same people, I caught involved with juxtaposed natures of organized crime with the kids in a method /S. This is uses of there's There's a Charlie Bowes, his sister. I don't know his sister. She tried to. They were involved with wire crimes, trying to pretend other acting, sequence shifts, with the same house, with the club, with people with that location around those places around Webb House, around that corner house of and houses on Church Street, recorded involved with predicate acts, narratives, illusions on Trinity College and on CCSU connected. Now these are intercities. Were also timed, where they made more complicated what I was trying to have countered with other people that they forced to roles, because that's where people are indifferent to committing crimes with those that value roles doing that against American citizens, as long as the former director of the FBI and federal criminals and people with the possession of job sites and collusion with them. Also with predicate acts and collusion with uses of what is inter-campuses and intra-campuses connected vertically and horizontally and exploited how the horizontal part is with locations. Now these are also people with mosques and religious locations and differences. Then they have differences of the types of religion that are also the criminal value to those doctors that are making opinions about others and fabricating conversations with them to do so, even through time. And they've been exploiting the identity ground locations by doing tricks, by having kids from other classes say things into the classes, and to the kids make confessions. They have confessions. They pretend passions and emotions, good and bad, criminal and seditious natures of it, in relationship to these predicate acts with the databases, which are also simultaneously medicines crimes, drugs crimes with kids, and threats. So they have a Leahy family that also made threats which would imply I had communications with them about the kids. They have their daughter involved also on Facebook, bullying me on Facebook, stealing my identity on Facebook with their parents, their whole family. They have generations of their family associated with Hartford Hospital, so associated with dozens of people at the Britain Superior Court, Hartford Courts, involved with them with predicate acts, with locations, with campuses, leading up to the World Trade Center attack and since. Please fear Mike Pence. Not you. Mike Pence don't fear. For I am here. Please have them on paper now. This is obligated of everyone to respond to the particular sequence shifts and predicate acts with the databases with the kids and wire crime acts and methods and uses of Facebook pages with this. There's also further leaderships with the school recorded, confessed, and demonstrated involved with the crime acts and methods of the judges and prosecutors criminally involved. So they've been hiding this from parents and using identities of titles to pretend they are what they are not. There are also people that live around. There are also people like tied to a Rob Schedule and a Dawn Schedule, I believe her name is. I don't know. A Schedule family is also recorded, confessed, and demonstrated involved with predicate acts by people tied to them. Demonstrated, associated with them with Middletown too. These are ones with doctors, foreign and domestic, military, such like that. Bad things happen in those areas all the time. Then they react to them. And with those types of people. So what you have to do is get me a response. We have the lawyers of the hospitals also criminally involved with them. Also with physical delusions, also that are evidences. Now this is worse than identity thefts and frauds on a mass scale still. So please make sure I get a piece of paper response. Have them pick one name and sequence and say sorry for switching names and forging names the way they did while attaching us to fabricated audio and video and the imposition of their confessions and of uses of them. Let's go.